Hi class. Today we're going to be talking about aquatic ecosystems. Okay, so you guys have seen the movie Aquaman, most of you. And if you haven't, I'm going to go ahead and give you a big spoiler here. Aquaman lives in the water, okay? So aqua means water. So in the water, okay? All right, so aquatic ecosystems are in the water. All right, and we're going to learn about three main kinds, okay? The first aquatic ecosystem is, well, let's divide this into three sections. One, two, and then that'll do. So 2 lines gives you 3 sections, okay? All right, the first type of aquatic ecosystem is freshwater ecosystems. Okay. All right, freshwater. And I feel every year the difference between freshwater and saltwater blows my children's minds. So I want to make sure that I clear that up with you right now. Okay, so I want you to write freshwater over here, and over here I want you to write saltwater. Okay, so freshwater has no salt in it. Write that down. No salt. No salt. Saltwater has lots of salt, okay? If something has a lot of salt in it, it is said to have high salinity. Salinity means there's a lot of salt in it, okay? If it has no salt, it has no salinity, all right? So the biggest difference is that this water, you could conceivably drink it, okay? If it didn't have any germs or bacteria in it and it was flowing water, you could drink fresh water. Salt water, you cannot drink it. It has too much salt in it, okay? Fresh water, salt water. Okay, so if we're thinking about water that we could drink if we were thirsty, one of the main places where you could find that type of water is a creek or a river, okay? In the creek and in the river, you would have fresh water. If you picked it up and you put it on your tongue, it would not taste salty. There's no salt in it. Another example is a lake or a pond, like a pond out back of your house. Those are all freshwater. Now, because they are freshwater, there are certain types of animals that live here that cannot live in the salt water, and vice versa, okay? So in freshwater, the type of animals you have is, all right, so let's write down some of the things that you would have. In a freshwater aquatic ecosystem, you would have let's see, you would have bass. You would have frogs. That would be in the pond. You would have, let me think, what else would live in freshwater? You would have, I'm trying to think. My goodness, what else lives in the water? Snakes, like water snakes, okay? You are not going to find an octopus in the pond, okay? Because an octopus has to have salt in the water it lives in. You would not find a whale in a pond, okay? Because a whale has to have salt water, okay, in order to survive. In addition, if you took a frog and put it in the ocean, in the salt water, it's going to die, okay? So the animals cannot move from ecosystem to ecosystem. They live in their ecosystem because the environment works for them, okay? All right, so let's go over here to saltwater. Some examples of saltwater. You would have the ocean, write that really big. The ocean is saltwater. Another example Also, a sea is an ocean, is salt water. The animals that live in here are very different than the animals that would live in a pond. You would have sharks, octopus, jellyfish. You would have, let's see, sharks, octopus, jellyfish, whales, all those types of things. You will never see a whale in a pond. You will never see a shark in a pond. You won't see an octopus in a pond, a jellyfish in a pond. These animals have to have salt water to survive, okay? Now, what about in the middle? Okay, in the middle, there is something called brackish water or an estuary. Estuary. And I like to go around here and box up this esta, and I like to use, it's kind of a little bit silly, but I like to call it Aunt Esta. Okay, I want you to pretend like you have an Aunt Esta. And Aunt Esta, sometimes she's fresh and sometimes she's salty. Aunt Esta, sometimes she's fresh and sometimes she's salty. So estuaries are a mixture of salt water and fresh water. Okay, they're a mixture. So if you've ever been to Little Washington, you know in Little Washington, there's a big, huge river there. And and what happens is in Little Washington, the river and the beginning of the ocean kind of meet. So it's where the salt water from the ocean and the fresh water from the Tar River, it's where they get mixed together, okay? So that's why that's happening. And if you go to Little Washington, there is an estuarium there. Now, Miss Ross, what kind of animals live in an estuary? You get a lot of shellfish in there. Okay, so let's write down animals. You get a lot of shellfish. This is where, crabs and shrimp like to be. So you can write crabs, shrimp. Get catfish in there. Okay. But basically what you get is you get animals that can live in both fresh and salt. Okay. But what they like best is a combination of the two. Okay. So what you'll find is if the water is extra salty, you'll get more crabs. If the water doesn't have a lot of salt in it right then, the crabs move further towards the ocean, okay? So an estuary is a mixture of salt and fresh water, okay? All right, I hope all that makes sense. Oh wait, let me write down some examples of estuary, this mixed up type of stuff. Some examples of ones that are saltwater and freshwater mixed is a marsh, a sound, a delta, like a river delta. Okay, all of those are like an estuary. A lot of times, sometimes you'll see that a swamp, if it's close enough to the ocean, it can have both salt and fresh water. All right, guys, make sure these get in your notes. You will need this information to help you with all of your assignments. This is the meat and potatoes of the teaching. All right, love you guys. Bye.